Some of the first recorded competitive fights happened within the simple confines of a chalk or sand circle, crudely strewn on the ground around the combatants. Ancient wall paintings found inside the caves of Mongolia depict images of nude combatants fighting whilst surrounded by a group of onlookers in the crowd. The paintings have been dated as far back as 9,000 years ago during the Neolithic period. In ancient Greece, wrestling matches were a key part of the ceremonial games, with prestigious combatants grappling it out on a squared mat or cordoned off area with a circle painted in chalk around them.
Wrestling is perhaps the oldest and most universal of all sports. The wall paintings of Beni Hassan show that almost every hold or throw known to modern wrestlers was known to the Egyptians 2,500 years before our era. The popularity of wrestling among the Greeks is proved by the constant metaphors from this sport, and by the frequency with which scenes from the wrestling ring appear not only in athletic literature and art, but also in mythological subjects.
In China, records of sporting events from between 221 and 207 BC show public wrestling matches being displayed for the crowd's amusement. The bouts took place atop an elevated structure known as a Lei Tai. The second oldest book on Japanese wrestling, which was first released in the year 720, is called the Ni no Shoki and outlines the events of the very first sumo bout, which is said to have taken place in 23 BC. At this point in time, the bouts were little more than unregulated punching and grappling contests, often with no rules, no referee, and no real confines to contain the fighters. In 1578, Oda Nobunaga held an enormous 1,500-man sumo contest in his castle in Japan and needed a way to display several bouts at once in order to speed up the rounds of the competition. This is where the circular arenas were used in order to keep the fighters in and the fans out. This tradition continued in many forms around the world, most notably in Japan, where beloved sumo wrestlers have continued to fight for pride in one of the country's most iconic athletic endeavours. This is where we derive the name for the modern combat ring, and we see the evolution from a simple rope or sand barrier being refined, elevated and better protected in order to further limit the risk of interaction between fighters and fans. Another beloved form of combat to take place all around the world is boxing, where, at this time, no real rules or regulations are in place surrounding contests, with fighters using taped fists surrounded by a horde of betting fans who would often encroach on the arena and slow down the pace of the fight. In 1743, the London Prize Ring rules were established, which saw the fighters meeting in a small, designated circle to begin the bout. In 1838, a 24 by 24 foot square ring was developed by the Pugilistic Society in London and is seen by many as the beginning of the evolution in today's modern boxing. The widely accepted rules at this time stated that the ring shall be 4 and 20 feet square, formed of 8 stakes and ropes, the latter extending in double lines, the uppermost line being 4 feet from the ground and the lower 2 feet from the ground. That in the centre of the ring a mark be formed to be termed a scratch, and that at 2 opposite corners, as may be selected, spaces being closed by other marks sufficiently large for the reception of the seconds and bottle holders to be entitled the corners. The vast history of combat sports being displayed for crowds is long and storied. These key areas which I've alighted in this brief history are the clues as to where the term squared circle is commonly said to originate. If you ever watch 2 of your favourite superstars fighting it out in a bout of glitter and glory, then these people's work you'll be more than familiar with. I'm talking about the engineers who imagine what a pro wrestling ring should be, the road and international transport crew who take these megalithic structures and bring them to your local city, and of course that we are about to discuss, and I believe it's time we shine a light on these incredible people and pay respect to their craft. The construction of the modern day wrestling ring is very much inspired by real sports rings of the past. Take a boxing ring and the two seem almost identical. Some boxing rings vary and have 4 ropes, some of which are connected by a rope in between, but apart from that, it's the same thing. The basic premise for a modern day wrestling ring consists of a square canvas, foam and wood layered mat, elevated by a steel box construction and stabilised by 4 metal corner pillars, protected by turnbuckle padding and supported by 3 concentric ropes, either elasticated or made from cable. The bottom sides of the ring are usually obscured by a skirt or material apron. Every element of the basic ring construction has been finely tuned in order to better enhance the athlete's capabilities during a match, as well as adding a sense of spectacle and grandiosity within WWE events. As with many aspects of sports entertainment, World Wrestling Entertainment has led the way in the evolution of the wrestling ring, and the hard work and dedication to create something innovative has spread around the world, evidence of which can be seen in most top promotions internationally. However, not everyone likes to follow the crowd. Whilst most wrestling companies choose the traditional 4-sided ring for their shows, some have made a name for themselves using 6 sides of rope, such as TNA, now Impact Wrestling. Impact used the distinct 6-sided ring through its arguably hottest run, coming before the company reverted to the 4 sides in 2010. There was always much debate, a hot topic for discussion which has continued amongst wrestling statisticians and performers alike.
Where do I start? And obviously I didn't come up with it, saw it in Mexico. But when you are in different television meetings, specifically when you're in toy vendors, and really the overall licensing program, not battling, but what makes you stand out from WWE? I'll never forget it. And I thought to myself, if I could get, Sting wasn't a fan of it. Hulk wasn't a fan of it. There's multiple guys. If they were in the meetings, you sitting in a meeting and they say, oh, you got a 6-sided ring, you got instant shelf space. That's a game changer in adding zeros to the bottom line.
No true consensus has ever been reached about the success of the 6-sided ring. Some speak of the ring's unique appeal, its very nature, to be contrasting to most every other promotion around the world, an encapsulation of Impact's desire to break the mold.
When they changed the 6-sided ring to the 4-sided ring, and I heard it was being debated, and I was like, me personally, I didn't agree with it, because there again, I really truly believed in the identity that TNA had built that was different than any other wrestling company that had ever been produced. And having that 6-sided ring, it was just different. And the thing is, did I like the 6-sided ring? Not really. It wasn't my cup of tea.
Whilst other traditionalists speak of the awkwardness of performing in an unusually shaped ring, most wrestlers trained for years inside of 4 sides, and making the change just didn't come naturally to everyone, which I must say I can completely appreciate. It's not simply the number of sides that are changed for this special ring. The ropes are shorter, which can impact the springiness, as well as the angles being completely off for when rebounding across the ring, making it possibly disorientating when acting upon instinct, as so many of the vastly experienced athletes do today. There's a reason the 4-sided ring is used by 99.9% of all wrestling companies around the world, after all.
TNA fans, you asked for it, so here it is, the 6-sided ring.
Impact Wrestling even gave the 6-sided ring a second run out from 2014 to 2018, a moment which was yet again received with a mixed reception from fans and wrestlers within the grappling world. AAA Lucha Libre in Mexico is also known for whipping out the hexagonal bar, more posts and more spots for the athletes to climb and inevitably leap from.
Because hell, I'm a wrestler. I know how to bounce off ropes, or thought I did. So working in a 4-sided ring versus 6-sided ring, if you've got a problem with that, grow up.
Throughout that entire time, their rings have been made by one man.
I'm Mark Carpenter. I'm the master ring builder for WWE.
Mark Carpenter, the founder of MTJ Manufacturing in Connecticut, has specialised skills in creating parts for farmers, hard-wearing lorry load bearers, and most notably, WWE's iconic ring. He said, "I'm a welder by trade." Mark Carpenter, a man with an almost fitting surname, mentioned during a WWE interview. Carpenter has created more than 50 rings for WWE over the last quarter century. Every body slam, pile driver and top rope drive since WrestleMania 10 has been performed in one of Carpenter's creations. "I don't have a full set of plans anywhere," Carpenter revealed. "You could reverse engineer it, but only I know how to build one. To have everything laser cut and have the materials in place, it takes about 3 weeks to build a ring." As he strived to make the ring more safe for the performers and more conducive to a good wrestling show for the audience, those who had wrestled within WWE's ring and those who created it spread these ideas to different wrestling companies to make the area in which so many of these men and women take so many thousands of hard falls and bumps just that little bit nicer of a place to apply their trade. When measured rope to rope, the average wrestling ring measures 16 to 20 feet on each side. Famed 90s promotions WCW and ECW, for instance, both used an 18-foot ring. World Wrestling Entertainment has used a ring on the larger end of the scale at 20 feet. All Elite Wrestling also uses the 20-foot ring, which brings a larger sense of scale to the combat in many fans' opinions. Many have commented over the years how when transitioning from other promotions into WWE and now AEW and their enormous rings, some performers have appeared dwarfed in scale. WWE has also had their fair share of issues with their decision to use a ring which takes up so much space and is so heavy to transport from show to show. One of WWE's long-term ring builders, a long-standing WWE veteran who will be recognised to old-school fans as ringside hand and timekeeper in WWE, but who is officially a production manager for the wrestling giant, Mark Eaton, recalled, "We used to do a tent tour in New England every summer. In Rhode Island, we could not use our ring because it was on a round stage that was smaller than our ring, so we'd have to bring in a 16-footer. When you watch someone like Sid Vicious, who was 6'6", he'd take one leap, hit the rope, turn around, take another step and end up on the other side of the ring. You couldn't do high-flying stuff off the ropes because the lights were so low in these tents." The underneath of the ring is not immune to Eaton and Carpenter's innovation also. "When I started in 1984, we made the ring to be transported," Mark Eaton said. "It broke down into 10-foot sections. Each piece had 4 corner poles, 4 side poles and a spring in the centre, so we'd make an X. And we'd put the 10-foot beams across, then 10-foot plywood, and it fit into a 12-foot cube van truck without a problem. The current WWE ring doesn't utilise springs under the ring like many assume, however, they once did. It was the worst thing that could happen to wrestlers, because a spring could bottom out," Eaton said. "We don't have a spring anymore, we have a ring that we kept up in Alaska, and the wrestlers started raving about how nice that ring was. It wasn't as physically demanding on the body. Vince McMahon brought it back down to the continental states, and we used that to build rings that are better for the wrestlers' bodies."
As you can see, there's steel beams that are crossed, and that gives a little bit of flex. That's to prevent the guys from getting injured.
Most wrestling companies use some sort of spring or suspension mechanic under the canvas and mats to help absorb some of the impact from a falling or thrown performer. Wrestling promoters around the world must make a choice when creating their show's ring. The spring can be looser and softer, creating a much easier landing for the wrestler and absorbing much of the force. However, the floor of the spring becomes visibly bouncy, and some complain of a lack of realism in these circumstances. The other option is to have a hard, stiff ring which bounces much less, but also pushes a lot of the impact back onto the wrestler's body during the matches. Mick Foley said, "Rings built for the WWF before approximately 1998 were particularly stiff, and One of them contributed to my injury suffered during my Hell in a Cell match against The Undertaker. The newest form of ring design uses a specialised beam under the ring which allows the steel construction which supports the ring to flex upon impact and to create an effect where the entire mat can act as a spring without the ring appearing bouncy. The ring's main designer, Mark Carpenter, is solely responsible for the metalwork and construction, focused on making the steel components as strong and versatile as possible, with years of innovation. However, that's not where the construction of the ring ends.
There was a time when the wrestling rings had springs, but because the ring was too stiff, what we've done, we've taken the spring out, as you can see.
The space below the ring is used for storage, items which may need to be used during a match, such as a chair to whack an opponent with or a table to slam them through during a particularly hardcore event. Any other tool needed on hand quickly during the show is often kept here. The distance between the ring and the entrance to the backstage area can vary, sometimes with a long stretch separating the two. If a particular match requires the use of a steel cage, ladders or other large objects, some of the tools and items needed will be kept alongside them under the ring. On occasions where an extra touch of entertainment magic is needed, such as the classic wrestling spot where the lights go out and a wrestler appears within seconds in the ring, as the lights flick back on and the crowd is left amazed. Those moments are usually choreographed to have said performer hidden under the ring in order to quickly pull off this trick of the ice stunt. The Undertaker may be one of the most well-respected figures in all of pro wrestling history, but he has spent countless hours with all 6'8" of his muscular frame hunched down beneath the canvas, while some random match goes on above him. The whole time, the fans are completely unaware. Kurt Angle and his brother hid under the ring. Drake Maverick famously made that spot his secret hiding place. Kane has burst into matches from beneath the ring on several occasions. Hornswoggle made a name for himself as the Little Irish Stereotype, clambering out from under the ring to meddle in others' matches as well as a host of countless others. Another man who I believe deserves recognition for his work behind the scenes in WWE is Charles Robinson. A man who you may know from his long career serving as a pro wrestling referee, but who you may not know acted as the head of WWE's ring setup crew, commanding a large group of workers in the goal of making the ring setup and takedown as reliable as possible. So knowledgeable has Robinson become in his duties of setting up the ring, he can mark out the distance of the 20x20 ring simply by eye and footsteps alone. He is the start and finish of every setup, with his initial layouts being drawn with chalk for the builders to follow. Charles then oversees and is heavily involved with every other stage of the construction each and every time WWE take down or put up a ring. It is incredible to think that alongside his duty as one of the more familiar faces of pro wrestling refereeing, in the later years of his career, Charles Robinson has continued to travel the world alongside the performers and has been a critical part of almost every show which he's been associated with for decades, and never really received the kudos which I think he deserves. So for that, thanks Charles.
The ropes, as you can see here, they're very, very tight, okay? Yeah. The way we look at it, you don't get a welt, they're not tight enough.
Much like its boxing counterpart, the wrestling ring attempts to confine its action between a physical perimeter. The 3 sets of concentric ropes that surround the ring are crucial for momentum when being Irish whipped or bouncing off the ropes, springboarding through the air. Some have choked their opponents with the ropes, climbed them to celebrate iconic victories, and been tossed over them in some of the most memorable Royal Rumble moments of all time. The ring ropes can be made of a natural fibre, twisted into strong ropes and wrapped in coloured tape, the way the WWE have done it for years. However, some prefer the old steel cables covered in rubber hosing, the likes of which are used in many promotions around the world.
It's not cable, it's not bungee, it's actual rope.
Ropes of course can break over time if you don't replace it often enough, Mark Eaton explained. I remember back in New York when we used to tape 3 weeks of TV in one night. There was a match with Hulk Hogan where he hit the ropes and the weld on the bottom of the pole snapped. all the ropes went limp and slid down the canvas. We put a bolt in there and were able to finish the night of tapings. It's never happened again. As the nature of wrestling has changed over time, and with the different needs of athletes between the ropes, the ring posts have needed to be adapted too. This is like version 5 or version 6 of reinforcement of the corner poles, Mark Heaton said. With the force of hitting the ropes, the poles used to bend like crazy. Now you need 2 people to pick them up. When a big body hits the ropes, it pulls the corner poles continuously and bends them. When I was building the ring, I could carry 2 poles from the ring truck to the centre of the arena with no problem, Eaton said. Now, I can't even lift 1 pole up. This goes so far in showing the difference with the modern day ring improvements. The posts also need to support the additional weight of WWE's use of LED screens for branding and effects around the ring. The tension of the ring ropes pulled between the posts creates the iconic squared ring shape. The 4 corners of the ring are where the ropes are joined to the posts and to one another, leaving otherwise exposed metal links or turnbuckles. This is where the pads come in. Not only a neat way to advertise your wrestling brand on television and in photographs, but crucial to protecting the athletes.
I do remember looking at the ring and going, I can't wait to get on the top rope and jump off. And when I climbed to the top rope, I went, that's a lot higher than I thought. And I kind of came down 1 to the second rope and was like, we'll learn how to do this later.
The pads and turnbuckles also allow for additional platforms for daredevils to climb up and perform the adrenaline-pumping top rope dives, flips and slams that wrestling fans so love to see.
It does not feel good. I actually just got double choke slammed not too long ago, and my upper back and neck are still feeling the effects.
Canvas is an extremely durable, plain woven fabric used for making sails, tents, marquees, backpacks, and other items for which sturdiness is required. Modern canvas is usually made of cotton or linen, along with polyvinyl chloride, although historically it was made from hemp. The ring uses canvas for its, canvas pulled tight and thin across the entirety of the mat and usually extensively covered in relevant markings and branding material. WWE even have layers of different branded canvases, one on top of another, pre-prepared before live television shows, allowing them, for instance, to transition between branding for SmackDown and 205 Live. When I speak of the improvements made to aid with the safety of the performance involved in pro wrestling in the ring, I do not in any way intend to mislead you. Falling from a height at speed whilst twisting and contorting your body, only to come to a sudden, crashing halt, must hurt. It must continue to hurt and probably never stops hurting.
It hurts. I mean, there's no bones about it. I've done it for 10 years now, so my body's sort of grown accustomed to it. But man, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It hurts.
There's only so much these wizards with wood behind the scenes can accomplish. Only so soft the mat. Every match looks like it's performed on a trampoline. The canvas is rough and unforgiving, and I respect each person who has been brave enough to go out there and slam into it repeatedly for our enjoyment.
It's like a car wreck, basically, yeah.
All right.
It's almost like, I'd say, for example, the first time working out, that soreness, that's what you feel the next morning.
The ring floor and mat are approximately 3 feet off the arena ground below, allowing a large space under the ring to install speakers and mics so as to allow amplification of the ring noise in an otherwise loud stadium, as well as, of course, being a place to hide fire extinguishers, blinding salt powders, and a whole host of other crazy weaponry and foreign objects to be brought into a match. This is all hidden by large curtains of material draped from within the mat and canvas layers, hanging over the outer side of the 4 sides of the ring and allowing for more branding opportunities. In recent years, WWE have used LED boards around 2 or more sides of the ring for further promotion and visual effects. Many have argued that the move into the LED era has drastically taken away from the feeling of what pro wrestling was in the dark and gritty era of the late 90s. I can understand this viewpoint, and it's obvious if you watch even a single minute of WWE programming today that the bright and overly saturated LEDs are all a part of their desire for wider appeal and a target of a younger audience. For me, I can understand WWE's desire for this modern look, which has more of a big sports feel like an NFL match with the advertising boards and neon lights everywhere, but also for me, when I'm trying to watch the in-ring competition in between the 10 million camera cuts per match, it's even harder to focus when there are lights on almost every surface which isn't a wrestler on the screen, and it becomes so distracting. New Japan is much more pared back, due in part to financial restrictions and in part due to a desire to keep the focus on the action between the athletes, and in my opinion this approach just feels more respectful to the craft and the combat. Mark Yeaton worked on rings for WWE in the USA and around the world for more than 29 years, overseeing many changes on the design and construction of the ring. On first view, the ring appears to have changed little over time, but very few understand the evolution better than Yeaton, who has referred to the ring as an ever-evolving entity. After the boom of the late 90s in wrestling, WWE was afforded the funds to expand with their Times Square restaurant in New York. This was one of the first times Carpenter and Yeaton had to completely rethink the ring's construction and logistics. Carpenter explained, "They couldn't bring the ring to the second floor. It had to go in the freight elevator. We had to design the tube system to come apart and put it together on the second floor. We built that ring specifically for that. I went and took a look at it and designed the new rings," Carpenter said. "I came up with the structure, the frame, everything that went into that ring." When the time called for WWE's first ever Inferno match, a stipulation which saw the combatants surrounded by a ring of fire, Carpenter was called upon to manufacture a solution as to how best display the flames for most visual impact whilst also being safe. "We had to use different poles so they wouldn't burn and melt away," Yeaton revealed. Taking into account large stiff masses and heavy heaving units is second nature to metal worker Mark Carpenter, so allowing precautions to make the ring sound and stable when ham hocks like Big Show and Braun Strowman collide. Legendary referee and backstage staff Mike Chioda spoke of how during a match between the Big Show and Brock Lesnar, the ring was expertly rigged in order to implode and create a truly memorable moment. "They had us stay out of the corner. It was controlled by a gentleman by the name of Mark Carpenter. He used to make the rings for the WWE. Ellis was part of the production in the back. He was the props and was a stunt guy. He took care of all the stunts. He mostly had that on a timer, and he was ready to explode it when a certain spot came, when they hit the corner off the top. That all came down to Mark Carpenter and Ellis and Big Show and Brock. I remember the crowds just went nuts. It was a pretty good feeling that was accomplished." Even more steps are taken when the ring is set to be put under additional stress, such as in multi-man matches, the Royal Rumble and large battle royals, sometimes holding up to 40 men. Sometimes a confrontation in pro wrestling becomes so brought to a boiling point that the action explodes outside of the ring, from power bombs onto the ramp, slams through the announce tables, and even death-defying dives from inside the ring to out. The area surrounding the ring is just as important to the action as the area inside when it comes to enhancing the performer's abilities and attempting to keep them safe. In WWE, we see the highest standards of protection in this regard. They use 3/4 inch mats, similar to those you'd find in a jiu-jitsu dojo. These mats are sometimes held in place with anti-slip tape and often interlock with velcro or straps to prevent them from moving under the action. Some wrestling purists believe that these mats take away from the reality of the action, and they have been known to become rather slippery when wet. But in reality, these mats in WWE and the wider world of pro wrestling are essential in order to protect the athletes from the hard concrete or steel which lays below them in the arena or stadium flooring. Would you really be able to say you'd prefer to see your favourite wrestler slammed headfirst into the brutal reality of WWE without mats at ringside? If so, then there are plenty of promotions around the world who wear their lack of ringside protection like a badge of honour. The same crew has worked behind the scenes on WWE production for years, overseen by Vincent McMahon. In 30 years, on screen, we've gone from the Wild Samoans eating roast chicken on their way to the ring, to Roman Reigns proudly showing his heritage while being a key figure at the top of the wrestling card, and women going from bra and panties matches and 1-minute segments amounting to little more than teenage titillation, to modern day women's wrestling main eventing and leading the way. The ring, however, in the most part looks the same, reacts the same and sounds the same, but when you look deeper, you can gain a better understanding of what has gone into the evolution of a wrestling ring, the hard work and the joy. Mark Carpenter said, "I enjoyed it. The rings are in Europe, they're in Japan. 5 rings had to be sent to South America to move them through customs fast enough. It's great to have these rings around the world." So as we move forward into what is more evolution and progression from within the world of pro wrestling, let us say thank you to those dedicated craftsmen and women who work tirelessly in order to deliver a spectacular show to the very best of their abilities before a match even starts and long after all the fans have gone home.
Well, we run shows on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Who knows what these creative folks will come up with in the next 20 years of wrestling ring evolution, but I for one am looking forward to finding out. Thanks for watching.
You have to create something that you can leave for your family and the rest.